Today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors. Today, we're mainly focusing on the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Colorado Avalanche. We'll discuss those teams and what their plans might be heading to the deadline coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have some updated NHL trade rumors to discuss today, mainly focusing on the three teams I mentioned in the beginning here, the Leafs, the Jets, and the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I've had a lot of comments here in recent weeks, especially in the trade rumor type of videos, asking to talk more about the Avalanche, and certainly I'd love to, and today I do have some information to discuss here with you today. And of course, it's not that I don't want to talk about the Avalanche, but this has been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter around their future plans or potential trade rumors. So I'll certainly cover all 31 NHL teams as the rumors kind of circulate as we approach the deadline here. There's going to be talk about a lot more teams, especially ones that are going into the playoffs. They're going to be looking to buy, and of course you got teams that are falling out of the playoff race that are going to be looking to sell. So there should be plenty of topics to discuss here as we approach the deadline next month, heading into the NHL playoffs. Let's get started here with the Colorado Avalanche. Now, of course, the Avalanche have one of the best lines in hockey, if not the best line in hockey, with McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen absolutely tearing up this league, all having tremendous NHL seasons, right near the top of the scoring list in the NHL. But the problem that they seem to be running into in Colorado is they don't have enough secondary scoring. They're not getting enough of a balanced approach here. So if that production from that first line certainly slows down and certainly, leads to a little bit more of a struggle for the team. Of course, they've recently been on a little bit of a skid, haven't been winning as much lately. So, the cure for that is certainly going to be, more secondary scoring seems to be the way to go. Players they might be looking to move in order to acquire that secondary scoring would probably be goaltender Semyon Varlamov. Of course, he's a pending UFA. He's battled a lot of injuries over time, been a little bit inconsistent. Of course, this past offseason, they acquired Philip Grubauer. They also signed Pavel Francouz to come over from the Czech Republic as well. So, those two goaltenders are certainly capable, in my opinion, of carrying the load here. So moving Varlamov out, certainly makes a lot of sense. The only problem with that would be is what is the return going to be? I mean, there's certainly a need out there for goaltending. To look around the NHL, especially some teams that are still in the playoff hunt, or even ones near the top of the standings, there's certainly a need out there. But would he be the guy they'd want, and what would the return be? So based on the fact he's a pending UFA, hasn't been the most consistent over the last few years. Hard to say what they would bring back, but I mean, some other players they might look to move as well would be probably Zadorov or maybe Nemeth. That's names that have been brought up here in the rumor mill that I've seen NHL insiders mentioning as possible trade bait members for the Avalanche to try to bring back some secondary scoring. Hasn't been quite clear exactly who they're targeting as of yet, but if you look around the NHL and some players that might be available, especially when you look at maybe the Eastern Conference for their Western Conference team, maybe look to the Carolina Hurricanes with Michael Ferland. As we discussed before, he's a pending UFA, got off to a tremendous start with the Hurricanes, but since his injury and return, things haven't gone as well for him in Carolina, and it's unclear right now if they want to re-sign him or maybe look to trade him at the deadline. But he might be the type of player as well that would be a good help to the Avalanche. Obviously, not only can he score, but he can add some grit and some sandpaper as well, which is obviously big for a playoff run. So that's just one name that kind of comes to mind as a potential trade target. But either way, those are the players that the Avalanche might be willing to move. But at the end of the day, is that going to get them the return that they're looking for to really get a big boost to their secondary scoring to really kind of bulk up and have a better shot at winning a playoff series? It's hard to say. I'm not sure that it would be. They may have to consider moving a first-round pick. Now, of course, as we know right now, they have their own first-round pick. And, of course, they have the first-round pick of the Ottawa Senators. And as the Senators kind of fall out of the playoff race further and further down the list, it's going to be more and more likely that that pick's going to be pretty high. Now, of course, it's going to be more likely a lottery pick, which means that you don't know exactly where it's going to end up. But the fact that it would have an excellent shot at being number 1, 2, 3, or a pretty high selection certainly gives them the possibility here of maybe dangling their own first-round pick as trade bait as well in order to acquire, a top 6 forward that can maybe play on second-line minutes or something like that. They can certainly look to take a little bit more of a risk with that pick, owning Ottawa's pick as well. So we'll see what happens here, but that's kind of the latest on the Colorado Avalanche. Now jumping over to the Winnipeg Jets here momentarily. The Jets are a team that they're expected to kind of take a similar approach that they did last year. Obviously at the deadline last year we saw them swing a deal acquiring center Paul Stastny from the St. Louis Blues. in that second line center role that he fulfilled with them into the playoff push. Certainly, was exactly what they needed. He clicked really well with their other guys like Laine and Ehlers, etc. And, it was a big reason why they were able to go as far as they did in the playoffs. He certainly played incredibly well, but of course, because of their salary cap constraints, they weren't able to retain him during the offseason. I know both parties seem to be interested, but just wasn't able to work, and he get a much more significant offer from Vegas. So obviously that's where he's headed now. But of course, the Jets, like I said, they're still kind of in that situation where they could use an upgrade in that middle six center position. Now, of course, the Winnipeg Free Press article that I'm referencing this indicates that that's what they should be looking to add, which really I agree. I think they're pretty solid on the blue line. They had some pretty good goaltending as well. Obviously, Hellebuck hasn't been quite as good this year as he was last year, in my opinion, but still, come playoff time, he could certainly bounce back. I don't think they need to do a whole lot there. The writer in front of Winnipeg Free Press certainly references a few players that he felt the Jets should target. One of them being Eric Staal of the Minnesota Wild. And personally, I just don't see that happening. Being Central Division rivals, I don't really see the Wild helping the Jets become a better team. I know not to say that Staal would not necessarily be traded, but I guess we'll see closer to the deadline where the Wild are in the standings. But it is possible we could see Staal be traded, where he is also pending UFA on a pretty friendly contract. Really, that deal he signed with Minnesota has turned out to be quite a steal, based on his play last season especially. But we'll see where things go here with Staal and the Wild. But I don't see, if they do move him, I don't see him going to Winnipeg. Some other players, though, that the article suggests that the Jets should take a look at would be Kevin Hayes of the New York Rangers or Matt Duchene of the Ottawa Senators. And at this point in time, it's not really completely clear if either of those players will be re-signing with their existing clubs. It's certainly a possibility that they may not even be on the trade market come the deadline. But I do think either one of those players would certainly be a fantastic fit for Winnipeg. I think Matt Duchene obviously is the more dynamic player of the two. Kevin Hayes, though, can certainly play a different role. Certainly pretty good shorthanded, pretty good on the faceoffs. Like, he is a very useful player that could help a team like Winnipeg in a playoff push for sure. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them trying to acquire either player. Of course, you get the Jets in the Western Conference. Both those teams are in the East. The Jets do have a fairly deep prospect pool that they could look to deal from to kind of satisfy what those teams would be looking for longer term. So I do think Hayes or Duchene make a lot of sense for the Jets, but it's not quite clear if either player will be available at the deadline. But I fully suspect the Jets will be keeping a very close eye on those situations, and I would not be surprised to see Kevin Cheveldayoff make a move here to bulk up that second line center position for the playoffs like he did last year. Now, touching base quickly here on the Maple Leafs before we go, of course, heading into the season, they had a lot of goaltending depth. They had Freddie Anderson, Garrett Sparks. They still had Calvin Pickard, Curtis McElhinney. But of course, when you have that many goaltenders, and especially with ones that require waivers, depending on what decisions you make, it's hard to hang on to that many NHL caliber goaltenders. So, of course, near the beginning of the NHL season, they lost McElhinney and Pickard both. Both were placed on waivers for the purpose of sending them to the Marlies, and unfortunately they were both claimed. Now, McElhinney's played pretty well in Carolina, and of course Pickard was originally claimed by Philadelphia. Now, his season hasn't gone as good as McElhinney's, but either way, that kind of leaves the goaltending depth situation in Toronto a little bit weaker than they would like it to be. And really, up until this point in the season, it hasn't been an issue. Of course, Freddie Anderson's a workhorse, can play tons of games for the Leafs, and he's their main goaltender. They're going to want him in there the bulk of the time when he's ready and able to play anyhow. And of course, they've given Garrett Sparks the opportunity to be the full-time backup this year. So of course, they made that decision to go with Sparks instead of the other two, but Sparks would have required waivers as well. So the Leafs were in a situation where they knew they were bound to lose a goaltender. Not sure if they tried making some trades. It was rumored that they did, but of course didn't work out any deals. And I think other teams probably knew that they could probably take advantage of the Leafs situation and maybe acquire one of those goalies through the waiver wire instead of making a trade and giving up an asset in return. So either way, obviously that depth in that position has been tested lately with Anderson being out. Sparks has been playing more. Now Sparks has a concussion. He was held out of the last game, and it's been revealed that he's dealing with concussion symptoms. So of course, with concussions, you really don't know how long they're going to be out. Now, of course, on the channel we discussed here last week that the Leafs had acquired goaltender Michael Hutchison from the Florida Panthers. Of course, Hutchison also used to play in the Jets system, was there for quite a long time. Kind of got a pretty good start to his career, but then kind of things got derailed. Ended up down in the minors a lot, but he is an AHL goaltender. He's been phenomenal. But of course, coming up with his opportunity with the Panthers, didn't really go the best this year. The time he did get to play, the results weren't really in place at all. So now he's gone off and was traded to the Leafs. which was, mainly intended to be insurance, I guess you could say. Some more NHL level caliber goalies that can play in the minors, the minor league system as well. And so far, he's had to be called up quickly just because of the situation with the injuries. Now, of course, the Maple Leafs also have another goaltending prospect, Kasimir Kaskisuo, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do find that last name quite tricky to pronounce, but of course, they'd rather see him be down in the minors, getting more playing time or giving a chance to develop instead of being up with the Leafs, kind of sitting down as a backup and not really playing. It's not really good for his long-term benefit. And of course, like I said, they don't feel he's really ready for the NHL as of yet anyway. And with it not being quite clear exactly how long they're going to need another goaltender, based on some comments we saw from Mike Babcock, it is believed that the Leafs might still be shopping for another goaltender. Now, of course, it wouldn't be any kind of big name, obviously. Freddie Anderson's not expected to be out too long term, but they might be looking for more of a quality NHL level backup goaltender with some experience, maybe something along the lines of a Hutchinson or something that might be even a little bit better. Of course, Hutchinson got to play his first game versus the Minnesota Wild, and things didn't go the best with that game. Obviously, the Leafs ended up dropping the game. So, I do think that it's believed that they're looking for another upgrade, at least on a short-term basis here, while their goaltenders get healthy. And of course, if they can keep them with the Marlies and have that extra insurance policy as we head into the playoffs, it's never a bad idea to have a number 3 goaltender that you can count on. And right now, it's not clear if Hutchinson's really capable of that, and if that's the guy that they have the confidence in to be that guy. So we'll see here how this plays out. But it is believed, even though we saw them acquire Hutchinson, that they might still be looking for another guy who can be like a third-string goaltender that has some NHL experience and can play down in the Marley system afterwards as well once these guys get healthy. So that is your latest NHL trade rumor roundup for today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up here before you go. And of course, if you're new, make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this one. There'll be plenty of NHL trade rumors coming up soon as we approach the NHL trade deadline. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.